The ACC, the Big 12, Florida State, a merger. What's even going on? This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On ACC crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy ACC Big 12, everybody. Maybe a merger even. This is Locked On Big 12 and Locked On ACC. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas. Kenton Gibbs of Locked On ACC. Ken, before we even get into all this merger madness and all the rumors and things that have been popping around all week long, right now, the prevalent deal is Florida State suing the ACC. So my question for you, will the ACC completely fall apart? Everybody said the Big 12 would when Texas and OU left, and they did not. Will the ACC fall apart if Florida State exits?
Very similarly to the Big 12, no. I mean, I think that this is being very badly overblown, and I think it's being overblown so bad because there's a lot of bad information floating around. And let's just be honest, right? You and I both work in the media world. We've worked in the media world for quite some time, well over a decade combined. And with that being said, what you see more now than ever is what gets clicks, and what is sensational is what will spread like wildfire, not what's true. For example, I saw one person reporting, there will be at least 6 or 7 other schools joining Florida State in filing lawsuits against the ACC. Now, let's just do a quick little exercise, because I know a lot of y'all, or not a lot of y'all, but a lot of people who read these things and believe them, they got handed their test with them folded up, upside down, with "see me after class" written on it, okay? And they parents used to yell at them, talk about if Johnny had 5 apples when they were doing the real early math. If it only took 7 or 8 teams to dissolve the conference as it began, right? Yeah. Like that's what it took to get out of the grant of rights as it stood to begin with. And now Florida State is one team that is going for the lawsuit. If 7 other teams join in different lawsuits, why would you, mathematically speaking, why would you want to add to your lawyer's billable hours instead of just getting together and saying, hey, don't we have a free option out of this where we can just dissolve the conference? Like, that's the type of stuff I mean in terms of bad information is everywhere. What is sensational will spread, because nuance and boring stories of, hey, this team's leaving, but the conference will be okay. That's not exciting. That doesn't, that's got me going. That's got me saying, oh man, this is exciting. Instead, we get to hear, well, the ACC is going to crumble, the Big 12 is going to crumble, and there will only be the SEC and the Big 10. And if you ain't in those two, you aren't in anything. That's what I think the reality is at the moment.
And Ken, look, Florida State's already the one that's pitching the lawsuit. They're the ones who are paying the lawyer fees. Why would an NC State go and do the same thing? Because if it comes out the grant of rights is fraudulent, then you've got plenty of proof. The proof of burden is there for the other teams that may want to at least rework the grant of rights in the ACC. So their reasoning to file a lawsuit right now would be moot if somebody else is already doing the work for you. You got me fired up about it now. All right. With that, though, if you're at NC State, remember you heard about those 7 teams that were talking about what if we could rework the grant of rights or get out. We heard about the teams that voted against Calford and SMU. If you are a UNC and NC State, are you happy being here if Florida State's not?
I would still say yes, because actually, let me not say yes. Let me say this. It varies on a case-by-case basis, right? Okay. Because if you're talking UNC and NC State, technically speaking, in terms of the ACC, those are 2 of the bigger brands if you were to take out a Florida State. Yeah. But if you look at, let's say, they might not be as happy as, let's say, a Boston College, a Wake Forest, who is like, hey, if this thing dissolves, we're going straight to the American, with all due respect. And that's not a disrespect to Wake Forest, because they're an amazing institution. They're one of the best academic institutions in the world. But in terms of sports draw, in terms of the crowd you bring, in terms of the revenue that you could offer to a potential suitor, everybody keeps saying, well, my team will just go to the Big 10. My team will go to the SEC. My team will go to the Big 12. Slow your roll, baby. You got to understand, when a new person comes in, it's like bringing a new person into your house. Yeah. Somebody else is dividing the pie. Now, granted, if Jeff Bezos wants to come into your house and be part of the pie division, hey, come on, Jeff. Let's divide up everybody's pie. Let's divide this thing up real evenly. But if somebody in a financially vulnerable position that has nothing to their name is like, hey, I'd like to come in, you're having a very different talk. And that's what this is. So I would say it varies depending on the university. And I will also say a lot of these fan bases, fan is short for fanatic. And so a lot of folks have an overinflated sense of what their school brings and what their school is in the grand scheme of all this. Like everybody thinks that they have a wonderful seat waiting for them at the SEC and the Big 12, Big 10 and Big 12. Some of us just don't, and we won't. I hope that we don't get to the point to we're at the mess around period of this thing. I hope we never get to the find out. Period for a lot of these schools, because there are going to be many fan bases that look back and say, how did it all go so wrong? We all joked about where we would go, and lo and behold, musical chairs, the music stopped, and there was no chair for me to sit in.
So that's what we've heard a lot about Miami and Clemson, that their athletic prowess is not enough. The SEC is not calling. The Big Ten is not calling those schools right now. So if they want to bullish, get out of the ACC, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? And the prevalent rumor has been the Big 12, but the Big 12, there have been a lot of murmurs out of the Big 12 too. So do you think these are teams that if they do leave the ACC are gambling away their opportunity to be in a power conference?
This reminds me of the old song. I want to say it was by the Jones Girls back in the 70s.
Now you're speaking my language.
It's called "Who Can I Run To?" Okay. Now in that song, they were asking who can they run to when they need love. A lot of these teams need to ask who can they run to when they need a conference, because again, nobody sees themselves as Washington State or Oregon State. Some of you all are.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the one to tell you. But somebody's got to break it to you. Some of you are that. And the reality is, because as much as people talk about, the Pac-12 broke apart and look at all you stupid teams, the Pac-12 breaking up before the ACC put them in prime position for them to secure their spots and potentially lock out some of those ACC teams that would have had positions otherwise in. That's just the reality of what happened. Again, this is musical chairs, and they sat their tail down. Already. So you're sitting up here like, wait, the music didn't stop yet? Your music may still be going, but it's just a very messy game right now. So I think that this is a situation where, again, you're talking about all the murmurs and all the information. Let me tell you something. Do you think that any of these conferences want to get hit with tampering? Because their tampering ain't like the NBA tampering where it's like, oh, stop. Don't you ask him to join teams with you. Yeah. Tampering on 9-figure exits and buyouts, that's a whole different ball game in terms of what the financial damages you'd have to pay are. So I think that these conferences are going to be pretty bullish in terms of who they are openly saying, hey, we want these teams. But even if, again, just do the logic, do the math, how many teams can elevate the amount of money that they get? How many teams can do that? Because we've seen it time and time again. It's a tale as old as time. If folks don't have to pay you more, they won't. If these conferences don't have to pay Florida State more to join, why would they? Why would they? And now you end up in the Maryland purgatory of, yes, I'm in the big conference. I made it. Oh, but by the way, your rights didn't make it with you. You made it. In the words of J. Cole, good news is, brother, you went a long way. The bad news is, brother, you went the wrong way. And that's where some of these teams are going to end up.
Like SMU, who's not going to make a dime for the next decade to play in the ACC, which I'm sure you're very opinionated on. And I know a lot of Big 12 fans are opinionated on that, Kenton, and that's why when they're hearing the idea of a possible merger between Jim Phillips and Brett Yormark, they're upset by that. Let's go there. Let's do it next right here on Locked On Big 12 and Locked On ACC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is where I go to make money. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options. You go in and you say, all right, the Jets are playing. If you're stupid enough to bet on the Jets, silly enough to bet on the Jets, you go do it. You put $5 in the money line. If it wins, $150 in bonus bets, spreads, player props, money lines, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official sports partner of the NFL. All right, Ken. Merger talks between the Big 12 and the ACC. Look, I get there is nothing substantial to prove. There are actual talks going on with Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips, but the idea itself has sprung up a whole lot of controversy. When you hear Big 12, ACC merger, before we even dive in, what comes to mind to you?
It's a neutral business. I mean, it's
don't get too excited. Don't get too excited.
And you know me, Drake. I'm a very excitable guy. I can get fired up if somebody tells me they don't like Arizona tea. I'm excited now. What do you mean? Those people have kept their tea $1 for 28 years. You understand?
The Costco of teas. The Costco of teas.
Hello? And you're not going to tell me you don't like them. But this deal doesn't elicit that. The thought of a merger doesn't elicit anything out of me because it's just like, what really changes? What really is substantially different because of this merger per se? Like that doesn't change the landscape or outlook of college football in a meaningful way to me, the same way that, let's say, the dissolution of the Pac-12 did. The dissolution of the Pac-12 drastically changed everything. It drastically changes West Coast recruiting forever because let's just be honest. If you're a kid that's from the Pacific Northwest and you're saying, oh, yeah, I want to play at Oregon or Washington because I want mom and grandma and granddad and uncles and aunties and whatnot to see me play. Well, congratulations, buddy. At least 6 games out the year, they're going to be going to the other side of the country more likely than not. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality, or not 6, but, you know, even if you end up getting all of the West Coast teams in 1 year, at least 3 times a year, they're going to have to go out to Rutgers, out to Michigan, out to Iowa, whatever the case may be. So, you know, this doesn't elicit a strong emotion on me because I don't think that anything very severely changes. I think that this is just kind of it feels like it's kind of bound to happen, but it doesn't feel very impactful in a way.
So when you say bound to happen, this is what makes me think of. With the strength of the Big Ten, the strength of the SEC, those are the 2 power leagues, right? We can't argue. They both have $50 million plus a year for their member schools. The ACC and the Big 12 cannot contend with that. So if what we believe, like Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, is saying, I want to consolidate college football to where it's just the power programs at one day who make their own rules. If that day is coming, the ACC and the Big 12 likely get left behind as they are. Is there, in your mind, a strength in numbers with these 2 teams and a possible merger to be a power 3 together?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There is a strength and power.
Does that get you excited, Kenton? Does that get you excited? So here's what will get me excited. Here's the thing that will get me excited about that idea potentially. And we see that the doggo got excited and the doggo needed to leave the room. Fired up.
He said the big dog's finna eat. But that's exactly what the feeling is here. You want to be at that big dog table. The only way to get at that big dog table is to kind of redesign this thing and flip this thing a little bit from where it is, because a lot of Big 12 fans got mad at me when I said this, but I meant it. Who is your heavy hitter? And if Florida State leaves the ACC, guess what the question is going to be for the ACC as well? Yep. Who is your heavy hitter? So if you cannot match them in that way, then you can match through another way. And that's by the sheer fact that Americans love football wherever it's on that. And you give a sheer volume that includes the Big 12 and the ACC. So now you've got virtually everything from the Eastern Seaboard all the way out to middle of America fully down packed and covered. I mean, who knows? And then even with that, you talk about the island of misfit toys universities with Oregon State and Washington State saying, hey, we don't want to be out there in the Mountain West or whatever the case may be. We want to come on back to the big boys table. Now, even if we got to take some scraps to get there, we'll mess around and do it. So I do think that that's a little bit more exciting of a proposition in terms of like the possibilities of the merger. But again, the realities of the merger are probably not as sensational as I'm making it out to be. And it's a reality that these 2 conferences could consolidate and end up where they still have a seat at the table, which is like, hey, great for you. More power to you.
Well, I think about this. Clemson. 10 years ago, Clemson was not considered a power brand in college football. You are, and this sounds so shallow, and it could be, you could poke the argument, but you are consistent winning away from being a power program in college football, no matter who you are. You are consistent winning away. It's what Clemson did. Nobody saw them as an athletic juggernaut, especially from an endowment standpoint. Now they're top 20 in the country because they won. Your university, Texas Tech, your university, Miami, your university, UNC, is winning away from being respected in college football. With that, Kenton, that word respect, when you think of the Big 12, do you respect the league, the brands, the Colorados now, the Utahs, the Texas Tech? Do you respect this league enough to want to be considered under that umbrella?
So I would say yes, but I would also say if I'm the ACC, I don't completely give up who I am. You know what I mean? Like I would say we need to come together and find a new identity as opposed to being fully named the ACC or the Big 12. I think that there has to be a kind of a different thing there because, you know, with all due respect, for lack of a better word, you don't want anybody, quote unquote, dropping their nuts and saying, hey, you're in my territory, buddy. This is not, you know, you want to
cojones, as we call them on LockedOn Big 12.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dropping your cojones. I don't want to get that call from David Locke. Hey, shut it down. Both of you, shut it down now. But very seriously, that's the reality in terms of I do respect the Big 12 as a conference and all that good stuff. And I've said this before. The question of who's your heavy hitter is not meant to denigrate anybody and say, ha, you guys are jokes. It's meant to say there is a reality in terms of when you look at the numbers, women lie, men lie, numbers never lie. That's the honest to God truth of the matter. Who are the folks that bring the numbers that can argue for that 50 million? Yep. Who are the folks who bring those types of numbers? And you can argue with some of our bad TV deals, especially for the ACC. Some of our bad TV deals is what kept us from bringing in those numbers. But the reality is you're not bridging a 4 or 5 million viewer per year gap just by a bad TV deal. Come on. Yep. Come on. You're looking at teams. Who's Alabama's professional team? Who's South Carolina's professional team?
I can't answer that.
Mississippi, anyone? What professional teams they got there?
Can't answer that.
Exactly. Their professional teams are Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Their professional teams are Clemson and South Carolina. Their professional teams are Alabama and Auburn. That's just the reality. So you're looking at a situation where you are going up against brands that are everything to where they are when you are a thing to where you are. And it's like, hey, like you said, you've got to come up with the consistent winning. You've got to continually put on a good and entertaining product. But more than anything else, if we can be anything in life, the first thing that we should be is for real. That's the very first. And certain people, like I talked about in the beginning of this, they're not being for real with themselves and saying, well, if this conference dissolves tomorrow, we'll be just fine. Why do you think it hasn't already, Buttercup? Why do you think? Because your AD isn't stupid. You are whatever you do in life, and everybody has a role to play in life, right? Me and you are media guys. We're talking heads. Some people are accountants. Some people are teachers. Some people are doctors, lawyers, whatever, garbage men, whatever your job is. You don't know more about your university's finances than the actual finance people and bean counters up there. Yeah. And the actual bean counters up there know that it's in their best interest to stay in these conferences as they are by and large, because again, there's not a place for everybody.
Wow. That felt, amen. I'm ready to shout and holler or whatever I need to do. I clip it. That was good. We can just end the show there.
Let me drop my cash app and I'll take up an offer. You know, it'll go. There ain't no building fund. This fund is building my pockets. Okay.
You see this new YouTube thing? They can super chat now. Have you seen this? Yeah, fans can like cash app you through you. That's what I'm saying. I didn't know it was a thing. A lot of these streamers,
What did Kim Possible say? Call me, beat me if you want to reach me. Okay, get on that super chat, baby. I'll super chat it up. I'll super chat that thing up.
We need to start doing TikTok lives. Those people make millions for TikTok lives.
I'll do a little hip shaking. I'll do a little bit, the little dances and whatnot. Come on now, we go.
David Locke,
boom, cat. Come on.
Kenton, Florida State. They want to leave the ACC, or do they? Because this could be, I don't think it is a bluff, but it could be a great way to rework a grant of rights. It's not good. Where does Florida State and the league go from here? Let's go there next here on Locked On Big 12 and Locked On ACC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors is crazy good. I've wrecked my car probably 6 times in the last 5 years. Never totaled, always fender bender-ish stuff. Always little things. It's the little stuff. You know, pole there, I'll hit it. High-speed crash, no. Sign there, I'll hit it. High-speed, life threat, no. So what do I do to fix that? eBay Motors. I don't have to become a better driver. I just get eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. Right now, you can get roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll find exactly what you're looking for. eBay Guaranteed Fit, that it's guaranteed to fit or your money back. With the eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. The prices you want, easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the win. Keep your ride or die alive, ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. That is eBay Motors. Kenton, Florida State wants to leave the ACC. Is this real? Are we seeing? Can we touch it? Is it tangible? Is Florida State gone?
I wouldn't say that Florida State is gone, but I would say that they got one foot out the door and their top hat on. They're almost saying, "My crew, let's go." They're almost at that point in time, and I'll say that because the reality is we are seeing a situation where, I've said this for a long time, and I said this when the realignment talks first came up. The conferences are not held together by friendship and goodwill. The conferences are not held together by handshakes. Remember what was held together by a handshake? The alliance. How'd that go? How'd that work out? You see, when you don't put things in writing, in very specific and clear writing, they tend to dissolve quickly, In the words of Andre 3000, what they say is nothing lasts forever. So what makes the grant of rights an exception? But the reality is
forever, ever.
But the reality is very simple here in that this is a situation where Florida State's looking for a way out and they think that they found it, and good for them, more power to them. But even if they do leave again, most of these schools know. Financially it's not feasible for us to try to quote unquote go it alone. And even with Florida State, I'm not sure that they thought this all the way through because, everybody at Florida State keeps talking about, well, there's a $50 million gap. There's a $50 million gap. Hey, listen, I'm with you. I understand. But let's kind of go through this from a logical standpoint. If we do that $50 million gap and then we look at you taking a partial share out of the new conference, how big does the gap become then? Because you'll still have a gap. And do you own your rights at that point? Is there that gap plus the difference in media rights for your home games because the ACC also owns that? Like, that's a very real scenario. The number floated, not by me, but by Florida State's people, was over $500 million, nearly $600 million.
Yeah.
$600 million here, okay? Now, with $600 million being on the table, if Florida State loses, Drake, I am willing to bet. Hand on the Bible, on everything I love, on my grandmother's grave, I love you, Queen Vine. I will rock a Drake Toll-inspired wig for the first week of Locked On College Football Live next year if Florida State loses this case and just decides to take on that $600 million hit. Yeah. Now, if they win, that's a different situation. Yeah, absolutely. They're gone, whatever the case may be. But if they stand to lose that much money, they'll take whatever hit they paid their lawyer in terms of billable hours and just eat the cost and say, all right, whatever, we don't want to be here, but we'll be here until the buyout is low enough for us to stomach it. Because, everybody pretends like we can do this. And every fan thinks, we've carried the ACC so long, we can afford that hit. My brother, sister, friend in Christ, you sure about that? Because I doubt it. So we'll see. Yeah.
Is this a direct product of Florida State not making the college football playoff, or was this going to happen no matter what?
I think that it was a situation where it sped it up. Yeah. It sped it up. It's like if you ever been in a relationship where you really didn't like the other person and it was winding down, and we know, Drake, you're 11 and a half. Don't worry. We'll give you the birds and the bees talk later.
I'll get a girlfriend one day.
But, if you ever see somebody who breaks up with their significant other because they left the toilet seat up or because they left the top off the toothpaste or because they left the TV on at night or something like that, they really didn't like y'all alone. That's a small thing that just kind of accelerated the process of where you already didn't want to be. And that was the case here. That was the case. You know what I mean? Florida State was already talking about realignment before the season. before all of this, they were talking about leaving. The snub just added to the fire because they thought to themselves, and rightfully so, this assumption is right. I don't think the conclusion they reached was right, but I think the assumption was right, in that you don't leave out a champion, an undefeated champion, from any of the other Power Five. You don't. You just don't do that. And even to that extent, I don't necessarily agree with that, because depending on who the Big 12 champion was, and depending on a year, if you saw Texas and Oklahoma down and you saw like an undefeated Oklahoma State per se, or an undefeated Baylor per se, it could very well be that situation of, oh, we can't leave this team out, and this team beat this team, which means this team has to come along with them. So it was accelerant on a fire that was already burning. But as Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire.
You didn't. And it sucks. And they shouldn't, like them being left out for sure expedites a process that was probably already in the works. You've heard their lawyers have been looking into this, or their people have been looking into this with the grant of rights itself for months now. Let's close the book here. Say the Florida State actually does leave the ACC. Where does the conference go from here? Does it just sit on its hands and wait this thing out? Or what is next for the ACC?
Yeah, you've already done what you can in terms of adding teams and all that. There's no need to rock the boat and say, oh, well, they left, so now I need to triple down and make a quadruple ironclad contract, and everybody needs to commit their souls to us in perpetuity, or else. Like, that doesn't make sense. So just,
That's what my last girlfriend said, actually.
Oh boy, Drake! These elementary school playgrounds are getting out of hand.
Yes, perpetuity. She wanted my soul, man.
We got to get these jungle gyms under control, because those 9-year-old girls asking for relationships in perpetuity. It's problematic, but that's neither here nor there. The reality is very simple. Obviously, if Florida State leaves and you lose in terms of in court with the grant of rights, then you need to work something out. If you win, congratulations. Everybody in the conference just got nearly a $50 million payday. But what do you want? Hey, if all y'all want to go, in the words of Fantasia Barrino, if you don't want me, then don't talk to me. Go ahead and free yourself. If everybody going to pay us over $500 million to leave, we talk about relationships. I've been left plenty of times in my life, and not once have I gotten a single dime for it, let alone $500 million. If you want to pay me $500 million to leave, you can pick which door and which time you want to leave. Just make sure that the wire is clear, because for that amount, you can't even write a check. You got to wire that to me. So make sure the wire is clear, baby.
I love it. Kenton, I don't know, man. This is all we will. This is an open conversation that will continue for the next year or more, because there are so many ins and outs of how this thing has already gone and will continue to go. But I'm glad that we can do it together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You my guy, Drake. I wouldn't rather go through this turbulent time of conference realignment with anybody else other than you, brother.
Well, I'm always right here. That's Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, if there are LockedOn Big 12 listeners out there who think, you know what, I like this guy, where do they find more of your stuff?
Absolutely. LockedOn ACC is where I am with Candace Cooper 5 days a week. LockedOn Wolfpack is where I am with Grayson Boone 5 days a week. And I'll tell you what, when one day when me and Drake Toll are super old, or I'll be super old and Drake will be significantly younger.
Driving a car.
He'll be driving a car and buying beer all by himself. And when that day comes for Drake and I'm, ready to go to the great beyond, and he's going to come up to my deathbed and they're going to say, only family's allowed. And you know what Drake's going to tell those folks? He's my brother. Can't you see the resemblance? And he's absolutely going to be right, because Drake truly is my brother from another mother.
Not adopted either. This is it's from the same mother.
Brother from the same mother. Brother from the same mother. Yep. We both got the same mom. Our house just grew a little bit bigger. She will be asking, who's this white man at the next Thanksgiving?
But I'll be there.
Absolutely.
I love it. Everybody, thanks for making LockedOn Big 12, LockedOn ACC your first listen to every single day. The rest of this week, all of next week. Happy holidays, by the way. Merry Christmas. Happy everything that's going on right now. And we will still be giving you content even through the holiday season. As busy as it is, somebody's got to be right here breaking it all down, from bowl season to realignment to transfer portal, everything in between. Thanks for making this, again, your first listen every single day. This has been a crossover of LockedOn ACC and Locked On Dose Grande.